Bad friends. What's up, y'all? Timothy the Tiger. I'm an evangelist, which means a messenger of the great news of King Jesus Christ. He personally has helped me heal physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Now it is part of my dharma, part of my purpose here on earth to make these videos to hopefully inspire y'all to ultimately enter into a relationship with God. Today's video is about bad friends. So the first point I have is that I'm sure many of y'all heard this, that we are the average of the top 5 people that we hang out with. And so that could either be good or bad. And so it's very important who we choose to spend our time with, because it does have an influence on us. And if we're striving to become the best version of ourselves and make it into heaven, all that, it's very important the company that we keep. And I know there's scriptures in the Bible about the company that the people that we hang out with. It's not coming to my mind at the moment, but I know there is a specific scripture about just being cautious about who we allow into our lives. And so right here, the first point I got is you got your alcohol friends and you got your drug friends. And a lot of this is just from my own personal experience. And I used to have a lot of friendships that were just based on alcohol. Like, that's what we would do together. We would get drunk together. And, when we're younger, it's fun and all, but, there needs to be more substance to a relationship. And then on the other side, I have drugs as well, where, I would say not as detrimental, but it'd be like, when your friends that you only smoke weed together or you do psychedelics with, which can be a bit more expansive, bit more intellectual rather than just alcohol. Alcohol was a lot dumber and destructive, and I'm really glad that I stopped drinking. I stopped drinking over a decade ago, and yeah, it's just poison. I did a lot of dumb things when I was drunk, and the friends that I used to drink with, most of them I'm not really friends with nowadays. And the friends that I used to smoke weed with and do psychedelics with, I'm friends with a couple of them, but, I don't do that anymore. I don't smoke weed. I don't really do psychedelics. Unless I feel the calling to do some sort of plant medicine, like Wachuma, San Pedro, or ayahuasca, something like that. But I haven't felt the calling in a couple of years. But just being aware that if someone's a pothead and that's all they do and that's all you do with them is just smoke weed just to distract yourself, that may not be the best friendship. And some people use the alcohol and the weed to escape, and you just got to recognize, like, is this a productive friendship? Is this friendship building me up and helping me become a better version of myself, or is it kind of dragging me down? And you can definitely find, some rotten apples with alcohol and with the weed, and just kind of going nowhere with it. And so just want to bring that to the awareness. The next one is loneliness. And this idea that, when I was in high school, me and this other kid, we were both, kind of lonely. And that's why we hung out with each other, is because no one else would hang out with us. And it was a friendship based on loneliness, but looking back, we weren't really that good of friends. It was more so like we were both alone, and we were both feeling lonely, so we both hang out. But there wasn't much. Again, it wasn't really a deep, good friendship. It was just more so we were both lonely, and we would hang out with each other. And I came to realize that he was actually a bad friend. And it leads into this next point. What do I have there? It says users, fake, liars, and long story short, with this particular individual, is that during high school I went to Mexico with my family, and this particular person asked for my garage code. Like the little keypad on the outside of the garage, so you can open up the garage from the outside. He said he forgot something on the inside. And at first I was like, no, like just wait, we'll be back from Mexico in a week. And he kept insisting. And I was like, sure, okay, fine, here's the code. And we come back to our house, and our house is trashed. He threw a big high school party at our house while we were in Mexico. And just super messed up. And so it's like, yeah, just, definitely used me, was definitely fake about his intentions, and straight up lied. I've also had another friend that, unfortunately, he's a really cool guy in a lot of ways, super awesome. I met him in Hawaii, and this guy could climb a coconut tree with no gear, just his bare hands, bare feet, and I mean, this guy was a monkey. It was honestly very impressive, and there was a lot of cool things, great things about him, but it just turned out that he was literally like pathological liar, and just and to me, I'm all about honesty, and to me it's so disrespectful to lie to people. And yeah, I mean, he even eventually got like this tattoo on his arm, and he got it with the intention to no longer lie. And I'm like, well, dude, that's a dumb tattoo now, because you're still a big liar. And I had to put that on there from just those two experiences where, like, both those people were, like, I spent a lot of time with. They were definitely in my top 5. And after a while, it turned out that they had a lying problem, and they weren't really who I thought they were. And a lot of these experiences suck, but they're learning experiences for me to be more wary and not so trusting into who I let into my life. And because I was kind of, I guess you say, naive, where I like to think that people have good intentions and they don't want to like take advantage of others and all that kind of stuff. But sadly, that's not the world we live in. Sometimes there are some rotten individuals. And I mean, that's where the teachings of Christ come in as well, where we got to learn forgiveness and not be angry and spiteful towards them. Jesus says forgive 7 times 70 to St. Peter. And so that whole story of forgiveness. Then what do I have down here in the red? I have ignore/leave you out. Yeah, this one kind of sucks, where like you think you're friends with someone and you find out that they're doing something fun like with other people, and if it happens once, twice, 3 times, like, I mean, it's whatever, people do their own thing. But when it becomes a consistent pattern where they're always doing fun stuff and they never invite you, you're just, you're kind of just left out. And it's like, dang, man, I wish you invited me. It'd be fun. It's like, why am I not included? And, just kind of just being ignored. And another example of this is you write them a message and they'll just ignore it for weeks or months at a time. And I've had one particular friend and do this, and it's not really respectful either. It's just like, hey, I saw that you read my message months ago. Why aren't you answering? And it's just a sign of disrespect and that they don't really care about you. And that, yeah, it just kind of hurts because like you think you're friends with someone, and then you find out that they're doing fun stuff and not including you, and you try to reach out and then they just ignore you, and it's like, wow, okay, not really a good friend. Kind of falls into the bad friend category. And there's a great saying, and it's helped me a lot in life, and it's rejection is God's protection. And ultimately, that's the silver lining in this. When someone ignores you and leaves you out, you're not meant to be there. God's protecting you from that group of people, or God's protecting you from that individual. And again, you just got to work on the forgiveness and, being Christ-like. All right, the last one I got down here are cowards. Yeah, I don't want to be friends with cowards. Can you trust this individual? I mean, I have one great friend, and, I was on a beach in Hawaii, and some drunk Hawaiian guy hit me in the face. And my friend was right there just defending me. And I was very grateful that he was there in that moment. And that's, I would say, probably the most important thing on this list. Think of the people that in your life, and if you got into a situation that was dangerous, or someone's threatening you, like a fight or something, are they going to run away like a coward, or are they going to be there with you? And I gotta say, in my top 5, I would say all top 5, they would be there by my side, because over the years I've come to learn to be friends with men that are godly, that follow Jesus Christ, men that are not only follow Jesus Christ, but they're also masculine. They're definitely warriors. They got the spiritual warrior within them. They practice fighting. They practice exercise. They lift weights, and just embodying being a man. And with that being said, I understand some individuals have physical disabilities. So when I say this kind of stuff, I'm just saying, like, we live in an age where there's a lot of feminine men, a lot of men that are very soft and just living in their comfortable lifestyle. And those individuals, most of them are physically able to, put on muscle and, be more masculine, but they choose out of their own free will the soft, comfortable, feminine path. And but then, of course, there are individuals that have like physical disabilities where they are unable to, for example, go lift weights or do some type of exercise. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, if you have the gift of a bodily temple of God that is able to fully function and do exercise, I'm just saying, like, why not? Like, why be lazy? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not, because I know there are people that have a physical disability or maybe a mental disability, or they're in a wheelchair or whatever. Like, and I'm not talking about that. Those people can definitely be warriors in their own ways, and so I just want to make that clear as well. And I'm not over here just being like, you got to be a meathead and be jacked. I used to be that kind of person in the past, where before my spiritual awakening, I would look at someone like Gandhi, who was like skin and bones, and I'd be like, that guy's not a real man. Look how skinny he is. Where's his muscles? And then I had my spiritual awakening, and I started learning all this stuff and learning everything Gandhi accomplished in life, and how he would regularly do 21-day water fasts and walk from village to village to preach essentially the great news of God. He was a follower of Krishna, specifically Ram. And anyways, on this channel, I talk about Lord Krishna and Lord Christ. And anyways, the stories of Gandhi are great. And I was just like, wow, I can't believe I used to think this guy was not a man. This guy is way more of a man than I have ever been. And I mean, there were stories, like, I guess, with the salt mines or whatever it's called in India, where they used to be able to get salt for free, and then the British came, and the British started, they wouldn't let them do it. And then as a protest, Gandhi went there with a bunch of people to go get salt. And the British pulled out their batons and started just hitting everyone across the head, like started beating up everybody. And Gandhi and all the men, they just did not react. They just took the beatings. And after a while, the British officers or British soldiers, they just kind of stopped, and they were just like, realized what monsters they were. And this was Gandhi's nonviolent protest, where, just don't do anything. Just sit there and take the beating. And it worked. In that example, it worked. And yeah, just stories like that where it's just like, whoa, man, I can't imagine doing that. I can't imagine just like letting someone beat me up with a baton. And again, it fits into this category of like cowardliness and being a warrior, where it's like, not always being a warrior means, fighting back. Classic example, Jesus Christ. He could have avoided that crucifixion. He could have fought back. He went with it because he knew that what would happen at the end of that. And it's a very mystical thing, all the changes that occurred after that crucifixion. So yeah, but it comes down to the cowardliness. So it doesn't necessarily mean we got to fight. But me personally, I feel better knowing the skills how to do it, and I feel better being with other men that know how to do it as well, and that when we're in a situation, they're not going to run away, the tail behind their legs, and cowardly run away, that we're going to stand up for ourselves and defend ourselves. Obviously, if there was like a knife or a gun, it's like, yeah, okay, fight or flight. You flight, because, unless I do have my concealed carry. And if it was a situation like that where I did have access to my own, that's a different story. I don't always carry it on me. I usually just keep it at home or keep it in my vehicle. That's a different scenario. If there was actually an opportunity for me to like protect others before the police got there, yeah, I do feel a responsibility, and I do feel comfortable enough with firearms to do something like that. But I was more so talking about in a scenario where you're just out and about and you're unarmed, no weapons. Okay, I think y'all get my point and everything. But it's just it's a mindset. The cowardliness is a mindset, and I've definitely been here, y'all. I'm speaking from my own experience. I've definitely been a coward, and it's not fun. It's not fun being a coward. And so some things that I've done in my life to be more courageous was earlier in my life was playing rugby. That was a huge hurdle. Just I didn't want to get hurt, but eventually I just I learned the skills, and I ended up really enjoying the sport, and I'm really glad that I did that. And more recently, I've been dabbling in the jiu-jitsu, and I hope to get into some of the Muay Thai as well. And it's great. I can definitely notice an increase in my confidence, and an increase in just being more courageous, and just feeling more masculine as well. Because it's been a long time since I played rugby, and it's nice to do the jiu-jitsu, which is kind of similar. Where with rugby you're tackling and all that, and jiu-jitsu is more like wrestling, but it's still a very similar level of aggressiveness that, again, it's just lacking in our society. And most males, they don't know how to defend themselves, and sadly I think most males would act sort of cowardly. And I think it's just the world that we're brought up in. We're brought up in a world that makes men cowardly, because it's just a very soft, comfortable, feminine society that doesn't encourage being courageous and brave and masculine. And fortunately, we do have the martial arts. Because if it weren't for that, then I would say you gotta join the military or something. But honestly, that's pretty toxic, because a lot of the wars are not righteous. They are not righteous wars. They are bankers' wars, and you're not fighting for a godly cause or any of that. And what I'm referring to on that is the Crusades, and how everything in our society is inverted. But long story short, with the Crusades is that the Muslims were genociding and enslaving Christians for hundreds of years before the Crusades started. And of course, our society is so anti-Christ, so anti-Jesus, that they want to make the Crusades seem like a bad thing. And when in actuality it was self-defense. Women and children were being enslaved, men were being slaughtered. Pretty much all of them were Christian, and they were about to the Muslims were about to take over all of Europe before there finally was a reaction from the Catholic Church to take the land back. And I see nothing wrong with it, to be honest. It's just because I think if the Catholic Church did not fight back, all of Europe would be Muslim today. And sadly, that's what we got going on, with the all the immigrants just flooding Europe and now flooding America. And y'all, this spiritual war has not ended. Most of the people flooding into Europe right now, they're Muslim, and they're very devout about their religion. And sadly, Christianity is sort of dead in Europe, and most people that were born in Christian families are more atheistic now. And now all these Muslims are coming in, and they're very devout in their faith. And yeah, sadly, it seems like Christianity is going to die in Europe, and it's going to become a Muslim continent. Just give it a couple generations, because sadly, the Europeans have become cowards. And I would say the same in America as well, America and Canada, where now the immigrants are starting to come in here, and they're bringing their religions as well. And I'm all about Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity, but something like Islam, that, practices jihad, which is the practice of invading other countries. It's like one of their pillars. Like one of the pillars of their religion is jihad, where like you go and invade other countries and you kill the men and you enslave the women and children and spread your religion, and if they don't accept it, you kill them. Like, they openly talk about jihad and how that's what Muhammad wanted. And I'm like they would say like I'm a bad person for calling it out. Like it's just like, oh, you got to love and accept everyone. And it's like, yeah, sure. But when they're practicing jihad and they want to kill me because I don't want to convert, and like they want to kill like all my friends and family or enslave them, it's like, yeah, I'm going to call a spade, and that's what people need to do. They need to stop being cowards and start standing up and recognizing what's going on in the world, because if we continue doing nothing about it, it's just going to get worse, and lead to that scenario that I'm talking about, where it's like, you're either killed or enslaved. But sadly, most people are in a slumber. Most people are asleep. And yeah. Anyways, y'all. So the point of today's video really is to recognize, do you have bad friends in your life? And I just got to say, I mean, I've had a lot of them. I've had a lot of them in my life. And they're blessings in disguise. It's tough. It's hurtful. But it's allowed me to filter and make better choices with who I decide to spend my time with and energy with and open my life up to. And I've realized who I want to be friends with. Like, I've spent a lot of time with many different categories of individuals. And, most recently I've been like a new age hippie. And I realized, I was like, those new age hippies are way too feminine for me. They're not very masculine. They're great in a lot of ways, but they are definitely lacking that divine masculine. I've just been kind of like distancing myself from them and be like, I'm not sure if I really want that in my top 5 right now. And so, like I said, the top 5 individuals in my life, I've met them through my travels, and I'm very grateful for those individuals, and I stay in contact with them, even though I may not be with them in the physical on a regular basis. Every once in a while we do meet up and we do get to hang out. But we stay in contact over the devices, over the phones, just messaging, sharing, and talking. And it's very important in these times. I would say it's very important in these times to have at least one person in your life like that if you're a man, that he's just... All right. Y'all, let's end the video. May God bless all y'all. Namaste.